Kings Drive Ghana Limited is offering you hire purchase opportunities, loans, and car sales deals to prospective clients who dream of owning their own vehicles. There's great opportunity for taxi drivers and truck drivers.
You foolish member. You don't go read the police. So the programs that they got cancel them. I don't go. Charlie, we for grow out though. Otherwise, Wednesday going fiasco. I don't go lie you. Oh, you can't afford the fiasco. This is live. Oh, can't find that.
Alright, so this is a great opportunity for taxi drivers and truck drivers. PDA, thanks for saying good morning to me in a very special way. We have Kia Picanto with Soka Macho, Hyundai H100, Nissan Micra, Mercedes-Benz buses. All you have to do is just deposit 10% of the cost of the vehicle and 2 guarantors, and you're good to go. You can find your head office at Kanswa Otamens, Bojuasi Road. Call them on 055-021 7150 or 055-034-2615. Kings Drive Ghana Limited. Hard work indeed rewards. And that's music coming from Manu Dibango. He calls this one Goro City.
I can't give fire out.
Alright, so we are on now. The Honorable James Agaga is the Member of Parliament for Busa North and ranking member on the Interior and Defense Select Committee in Parliament. And this morning, our attention is on the deal that was ratified by Parliament last Friday. The issues that are arising after the ratification of that document, the vehemence with which the minority, resisted this deal between Ghana and the US of A. Why and how we are being told that the minority had 14 members represented on the committee. All these and more would we seek to address. Honorable, good morning and thanks so much for joining me.
Good morning, Michelle.
I hope you're doing well today, sir.
I'm fine by God's grace, but very disappointed.
Very disappointed. I saw you on YouTube defending vehemently your position when it comes to your resistance to this deal. Why are you opposed to such a deal which is gone through no cheap persons than His Excellency the President, the Vice President, and his cabinet ministers, who are his lieutenants, would have gone through the entire deal and in seeking the interests of Ghana, approved it and brought it to Parliament for ratification?
Michelle, I am disappointed, regardless of the fact that the bill passed through the hands of the President, the Vice President, the Cabinet, etc., that those entrusted with the responsibility to protect the interests and to defend same have betrayed the good people of Ghana by first and foremost accepting to negotiate the terms of such a terrible deal which compromises our national sovereignty in no small measure. They have given the United States government, per the agreement, the opportunity to now walk into our country, have exclusive use of certain facilities, in fact, unimpeded access. That is the language of the agreement. And when that happens, it means you have given them the opportunity to establish a military base within your country. And I've heard many people attempt to say the agreement does not contemplate the setting up of a military base. What is a military base? You give a foreign military power unfettered access to certain facilities within your country. You grant them exclusive use of same. You allow them to bring into this country all manner of military equipment, vehicles, vessels, and even material. Material is yet to be defined. They are given the opportunity to store all those things that I have listed. To make matters worse, they have freedom of movement. Those vehicles, ships, etc. can enter our territory at any time without seeking further approvals from our authorities.
Is that not where...
That is a complete sellout. It is a complete sellout. The particular provision in the agreement, which even makes it more dangerous, is the fact that it seeks in Article 18 to oust the jurisdiction of our courts. The dispute settlement mechanism does not allow for our courts to have anything to do with disputes arising out of the implementation of that.
Is that not where the issues about double standards that some government communicators have been saying that, look, this is similar to an agreement which have been signed by your government, for that matter, the NDC, in 1998, in 2015, and therefore you cannot turn around and come back and cry wolf when you have signed a similar deal before. The only difference is this has come to Parliament. That's why it's become public knowledge.
Again, I have demonstrated that the agreements entered into by the NDC with the Americans are completely different from the agreement that was ratified by Parliament on Friday. In material respects, let me start with the 2015 agreement. The March talked about 2015 agreement, and the Minister for Defense has said so much about this agreement. If you read the 2015 agreement, it is nothing but a logistics support agreement. A logistics support agreement.
What does that mean?
What it simply means is that per the agreement, Ghana could buy logistics from the United States to fix or repair certain military equipment that our armed forces use. This agreement was a commercial one done for money. So the US will supply us with logistics and services, or if we have the logistics and services, we also offer them in return for a fee, for money. Right? So that is what the 2015 agreement was about. It did not. There's no provision in that agreement which sells our sovereignty to the United States. In fact, if you look at that agreement, it clearly says the respective laws and national regulations of either country will be fully respected. Let me take you to Article 3 of that agreement, and it reads, all activities of the parties under this agreement and any implementing arrangement shall be carried out in accordance with their respective national laws and regulations. You see, so this is an agreement which recognized the fact that either country was sovereign, and for which reasons its national laws will apply.
Honorable, let me be the eyes and the mouthpiece of my listeners, and let me go through your 2015 document, and maybe some few things might just come across that I may want for you to, clarify for me as we move along. So, this 2015 agreement is so different from that of the one that has been signed.
Absolutely.
How about the 1998 one that we are told, was also similar to what we have signed now, which has been ratified?
Yes. The 98 agreement was also fundamentally different from the agreement ratified by Parliament at the instance of the NPP in several respects. First of all, we have to accept the fact that the 98 agreement did not grant unfettered access to facilities, our runway, our airport, to the Americans. The 98 agreement did not allow the Americans to bring into this country just anything by way of equipment, material, which hasn't been defined, for storage in our country without extending to our authorities the opportunity to even inspect same. So I have made the point that under the new agreement, nuclear weapons could be deployed in this country, could be stored in this country, even without the knowledge of our government. Chemical weapons could be brought into this country for storage without the knowledge of our government. Under Article 7 of the agreement. Now, those arrangements do not find expression in the 1998 agreement at all. The other important thing you need to realize or know is that the 98 agreement did not purport to oust the jurisdiction of our courts. It did not. There is no provision in the 98 agreement which says that in the event of any dispute arising out of the implementation of the 98 agreement, the Ghanaian courts would be bereft of the power to entertain suits and deal with them.
All right, for the benefit of my listeners, I have been going through or perusing the document while we move along. So far, what I've said, this looks like a transactional deal.
Absolutely. With clauses on reimbursement,
yes.
payment. You act in a certain way in return for money.
Yes, because
that was the arrangement.
Yes, I've seen terms of the equivalence in terms of CD and dollar and all of that. Reimbursements, Article 5. There is also an article which has to do with the waived or exclusive cost, and as much as I just received it. Insofar as national laws and regulations permit, the parties shall ensure duties, taxes, and similar charges are not imposed on activities conducted under this agreement. The parties shall cooperate to provide proper documentation to maximize tax and custom relief. So, which means that aside, in variance with what we signed, which waives all our taxes and all of that, this agreement, which is a transactional one, all those waivers, if any, would be concluded between the two parties.
Subject to our national laws. Subject to our national laws. So how can anybody equate an agreement of this nature to the agreement that was ratified on Friday? The material differences are very clear for all to see.
Very clear. Very clear. So the argument that is made by the defense minister is that what has been signed is premised on the 1998 one and then the 2015 one, because that relationship already exists, and therefore this is an enhanced deal between us and the United States of America.
The enhancement, we have said, is problematic. It is an enhancement which sells our sovereignty to the United States, an enhancement which outs the jurisdiction of our national laws and courts so far as the implementation of that agreement is concerned, an enhancement which would allow for the United States of America to use Ghana as a launch pad to engage in all forms of military adventurism, including the invasion of other countries, which would then make Ghana a legitimate target to the adversaries of the United States of America. An enhancement which would allow them to even store, without inspection, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons within our sovereign territory. We're saying that the enhancement was simply too much. The enhancement is a sellout. The enhancement does not serve the best interest of Ghana. To make matters worse, the enhancement comes at a fee of $20 million.
But how does
is that the worth of Ghanaians?
How does the deal, endanger Ghanaians? If the United States of America, the presence of the United States of America, how does it endanger Ghanaians?
You see, we've always had bilateral ties with the United States of America. But we have been very measured in our relationships with them. Remember that Ghana is non-aligned. That has always been our foreign policy objective, right from independence. So you don't go and open up too much to the extent that you allow your territory to now become the launch pad for military adventurism on the part of the United States. When you do that, Eshen, you have endangered the security of the people of Ghana, because whoever is an enemy of America would now see Ghana as an enemy, because you have allowed them to have a military base in your country to attack them or whatever. I mean, that is the necessary implication.
But is there demonstrable evidence to this assertion you make that if we are friends with the US and they have a facility here on soil, on the ground, automatically their enemies become our enemies?
Yes. I mean, you need to be guided by lessons in history. Lessons in history. And I have always said that we should not shy away from pointing to what happened in next door Ivory Coast. Okay? We don't want to create any diplomatic row with anybody, but you know what happened in Ivory Coast? The intrusions of the French military, etc., which eventually resulted in the overthrow of President Laurent Gbagbo. Well, that is history. But we're saying that today, things may be rosy. You don't know about tomorrow. And so when you're taking decisions, don't think about the present. Think about the future. Think about your national interest. Because the other country you are negotiating with has its own interest at stake. They are not Father Christmas. I've heard people argue that, oh, when we have this agreement in place, they would come here, it enhances our security. I've always said that that is not true. The enhancement envisaged under clause 2, right, is relative to presence.
Okay.
Presence. The type of presence they want to create. Period. Look at Article 2 and you would understand what I'm talking about. This agreement sets forth a framework for enhanced partnership and security cooperation between the parties with the aims of strengthening their defense. Don't read this in isolation. Read it as a whole. You'd understand that they want to expand access.
But what
have
gives
unimpeded control.
What gives you cause to, if you doubt the defense minister of Ghana, what gives you cause to doubt the embassy here in Ghana, the US embassy here, when the ambassador has said that this is not an agreement that is going to make the US, set up any base here?
Should we be misled by nomenclature? Should we not be more concerned with the substance rather than the form, the words, the play on words? I think we should be smarter than that. When you grant a foreign country unimpeded access, exclusive control, you deny even your partners the right to inspect whatever you bring into their country. You call that a partnership? And you are saying that because the American ambassador has said what they are about to do is not a base, we should accept that. We should accept that. No, I think we are intelligent people. Ghanaians should be credited with at least some level of intelligence. Everywhere Ghanaians have worked within the Committee of Nations, we have distinguished ourselves. Look at the likes of Kofi Annan. Several Ghanaians who have been chambers. I mean, they are worthy ambassadors of this country. Wherever they've been, they've left a mark. So Ghanaians are very smart people. So we don't need the American ambassador to tell us that what they're about to do is not a base. But look at the text of the agreement and you'd understand that what they're about to do is simply to be allowed to establish a base. If they establish a base in the course of the implementation of this agreement, they bring in 10,000 troops. And there is room in the agreement for the expansion of facilities that they can have control and access to through writing. They will simply just write. They wouldn't even have to come back to Parliament. It's contained in the agreement. right? At that time, the People's Assembly would not even have the power to delve into anything. And so you wake up in the morning and see an expansion in presence, the type of equipment that will be brought in, etc. That is why in the 2015 agreement, there are express provisions which spells out the type of equipment that could be brought into this country as part of the logistics support and the type of, weaponry that couldn't be brought into our country. Let me take you through, Eshen.
Okay.
For those who think that the 2015 and 2018 agreements formed the basis for the 2018 agreement, to understand that that particular assertion is very much discredited. Look at the Article 5. No, let me start with 4. The following items are not eligible for transfer under this agreement and are specifically excluded from its coverage. A. Weapons systems. B. Major end items of equipment, except for the lease or loan of general purpose vehicles and other non-lethal items of military equipment where such lease or loan is permitted under the national laws and regulations of the parties. And C. Initial quantities of replacement and spare parts associated with the initial order of major items of organizational equipment. However, individual replacement and spare parts needed for immediate repair and maintenance services may be transferred. You understand?
Clearly spelled out.
Yes. 5. Also excluded from transfer by either party under this agreement are any items the transfer of which is prohibited by its national laws or regulations in accordance with U.S. law and regulation. The United States currently may not transfer the following items under this agreement: guided missiles, naval mines and torpedoes, nuclear ammunition, including such items such as warheads, warhead sections, projectiles, demolition munitions, and training ammunition, guidance kits for bombs or other ammunition, chemical munitions or ammunition. You see, so Eshen,
there were boundaries.
Yes, so Eshen, when I say that the 2018 agreement, right, opens up too much and places us at the mercy of the United States, you easily understand where I'm coming from. Now, let me read Article 7.
Okay.
And you see the fundamental difference. Article 7 of the 2018 agreement reads as follows: United States forces are hereby authorized to pre-position and store defense equipment, supplies, and material at agreed facilities and areas. The pre-positioned material of the United States forces and the agreed facilities and areas or portions thereof designated for storage of such pre-positioned material shall be for the exclusive use of the United States forces. The United States forces shall retain Title II and control over the use of pre-positioned material, and shall have the right to remove such materials, such items from the territory of Ghana. Material is not defined. So when I say this agreement allows for the Americans to bring into our country prohibited weapons, nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, I am not scared. I am not scaremongering. I'm not scaremongering.
Let's touch base with, let's say the executive erroneously forwarded this to Parliament. You are supposed to be the checks, that's supposed to be the checks and balances. You're supposed to check on the executives when it comes to the passage of some of these things. Now, we understand that the 24-member committee was set up, of which 14 NDC MPs were members. What happened during your sittings?
Thank you very much, Eshen. You see, following the passage of the agreement, the very much discredited agreement, which compromises our sovereignty, there has been a general outpouring of anger. There has been a sense, Ghanaians have a feeling of the sense of betrayal in the hands of the Nanado-led MPP government. And so they have been trying hard to rope in the NDC and, of course, by extension, the minority NDC members of the Joint Committee of Defense, Interior, Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs. Eshen, I woke up in the morning on Saturday and saw on social media the mischievous display of the votes and proceedings of Parliament, which captures the attendance list at the committee. Now, somebody used his pen to encircle around the names of the respective MPs list,
Okay.
and to identify them by their respective political parties, to create the impression that the NDC minority members were in the majority at the committee and must have been the ones who voted to recommend that the agreement be passed at the plenary. First of all, the level of dishonesty and insincerity should be condemned in no uncertain terms. Why? Because, one, the committee did not vote on anything. You would ask me why the committee did not vote, and I'll come to that. Mark my words. The committee did not vote. I challenge anybody who says the committee, by virtue of the fact that the attendance list shows that the majority of MDC MPs in attendance were in the majority, voted, to come out with the minutes of the proceedings of the committee, and the clerks are enjoined under the standing orders to capture the minutes of the proceedings. I have extended the invitation to them to bring up the minutes of the proceedings. In any case, if we had voted on the recommendations to be made, the voting pattern would have been captured succinctly in the votes and proceedings. Do you see any voting pattern captured in the votes and proceedings on display in social media? That is a fundamental question to ask.
Let me ask another.
But let me take you to another important
before you take
dimension
me there,
to the
argument.
argument.
There's this point that I want you to clarify for me. Is it the norm that on such major issues or policy issues of this government, that the minority in Parliament would have majority of its members being represented on such a committee?
No. Far from that.
It's not the norm.
Far from that.
So did it not occur to you that this could be a setup for you as a minority? On such a huge issue of this one, they decided to constitute a committee which has 14 of their members.
No, you see, the committees are already constituted.
Okay.
The committees are already constituted. So if you take, for instance, the Defense and Interior Committee, of which I'm the ranking member, the number of NDC members on that committee is less than the MPP. Because what usually informs the representation is the number of seats held by the political party. MPP has more seats than us. So that reflects on the number of slots they would have on the Defense and Interior Committee.
So established for me, they are more than you on that committee.
Absolutely. The same applies to the Committee for Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs. In fact, all committees in Parliament, they outnumber us.
Okay.
So that is the first point that needs to be established. So it's not the case that the composition of the particular joint committee was done in such a way so as to give more numbers to the NDC than them. No, that is not the case.
Okay.
What happened was that on the attendance list, you see, when you appear for committee business, you register, you write your name, and sit. But trust me, those who know how Parliament functions would agree with me that there can be times a member would members belong to more than one committee. You see?
Yeah.
So a member would come, register, sit for a while, and run to other committees to also attend upon them. So if you go by the list of members registered on the attendance list in itself, you may be misled. It doesn't necessarily mean that when it comes to the time for taking decisions, that particular list, all the names you see would be present for business. I can give you an example, and I don't want to mention names. On the particular day in question, when we're considering this, a member of the committee was around, but he had to leave to attend to other parliamentary business, so he wasn't irresponsible. But that is the workings of parliament. So if you mislead yourself with the mere attendance list, at the time of probably taking a decision, you'll be surprised to find that the NDC was probably not in the majority after all. That is why if you really want to know who had numbers, etc., and could have pushed for what decision, you would look at the voting pattern, who and who was present and willing to vote and was given the opportunity to vote, and how the person voted.
At what point do you vote at committee level? At what point do you vote?
Very good. Eshen, our standing orders in Order 211 determines how voting would be taken. Voting is usually done when there is a division in respect of issues arising before the committee. A division would mean that, okay, if the NDC takes, or the minority members, or a member takes a view that others don't share in and pushes on with his position, of course a decision would have to be taken. But before the division can be declared, you see, you have to understand that the committee's business is presided over by a chairman. And the chairman, because of the level of representation, would almost always come from the majority side. There are a few committees that are chaired by the minority, and those that are known to me are only two: the Subsidiary Legislation Committee and the Committee for Public Accounts. These are the only two committees chaired by the minority on convention. Beyond that, all other committees are chaired by the majority by virtue of their numbers on the committee. So the joint committee was chaired by the Honorable Seth Achampo, the MP for the MPP MP for Mprayeso, who is also the chairman of the Defense and Interior Committee. So clearly there were opposing views which called for a division. And the first objection that we, the minority group on the committee, the NDC minority group, right, led by my good self, raised in the collective. We raised that objection in the collective, was that the agreement was unconstitutional. That it was in violation of Article 75 of the Constitution, because what was brought before us had not even been executed by the executive. And so the entire agreement be thrown out. So right from the word go, there was a division. Now, this division was deadlocked. We argued and argued and argued. Arguments, counter-arguments were held for well over 3 hours. I invited the chairman to rule that there was a division, to allow for the clerk to commence work by approaching each and every member in attendance to first of all inquire from them how they intended to vote and record same accordingly.
And what did he say?
The chairman ruled against my application. He ruled against...
On what grounds?
Well, that is the question he should be answering. I can answer that. I am of the conviction that he acted in violation of Order 211 of the standing orders. So he wouldn't allow for a division to be declared, let alone authorize voting to take place. Eshen, what do you do when you are confronted with a situation of this kind? Your options are limited. We are civilized people. We couldn't have beaten up the chairman at the committee. Is that what people expected us to do? We couldn't have done that. We are civilized people. The next option available was for us to stage a walkout. But because of the very sensitive nature of the agreement, if we had walked out, what that would have meant is that all our objections, which found their way into the committee's report, would not have been captured. That would not have afforded us the opportunity to argue on the floor, because they would not, for instance, have said the agreement was unconstitutional. They wouldn't have said so, as can be seen in the first observation in paragraph 6.0 of the committee's report. It comes in this form: Article 75 of the 92 Constitution and Article 75, this agreement, as any other international agreement executed by the executive, ought to be placed before Parliament for ratification by resolution. This agreement was placed before Parliament by the executive for ratification prior to execution. This is the committee's report. What this is saying, in effect, is that the entire agreement is unconstitutional. This is an observation. This is an objection that stood in the name of the minority NDC
So
group.
the only trigger that could have allowed for a vote or a voting on the how do you call it, the objections you had raised at the committee level was if the chairman had admitted that there was division in terms of consensus building and therefore needed to be put to a vote.
Absolutely.
And that did not happen.
That did not happen. So, Eshen, maybe it was a tactic to frustrate us to stage a walkout so that they would have their way. We resisted that temptation because we wanted our reservations to be, observations and objections to be captured in the report at all cost. At all cost. Right? So we stayed on, and I argued that let all objections be captured succinctly in the report. That is how come you have all these things captured in the report. Look at the provision that the chairman of the committee eventually amended.
Before you go on, so yes, this report that you are holding suggests there was no division, and that's how come there was no voting. Is that what it means?
On the face of it.
On the face of it.
But if you now look at the amendment I introduced, when the report was eventually laid, it was an admission of a division. Right? It was an admission of a division because I caused, and that was what created the confusion on the floor. When I stood up and attempted to catch the speaker's eye so that I would introduce that amendment to reflect what actually transpired at the committee. Because this is how the committee wanted to conclude. That the committee, which was not a true reflection of what transpired, that the committee has thoroughly examined the agreement and finds that its ratification would help provide a mutually beneficial arrangement for cooperation and readiness to combat emerging global security threats, while also enhancing an already existing relationship between the two countries in the area of security cooperation. I said no. I said fine, because you took an entrenched position and because you are the majority, the MPP majority, let the agreement now read by the insertion of the following words: by majority decision, so that the thing would read, the committee has thoroughly examined the agreement and finds by a majority decision that its ratification, so that by majority decision would stand in the name of the MPP.
And that was amended.
That was amended. That was accepted. So why are people not adverting their minds to what must have created the confusion on the floor? People should advert their minds to this. But let me bring one other important revelation. That after this amendment had been taken, the MPP group led by Honorable Seth Achampo found it compelling to also propose an amendment to paragraph 6.4, which was couched in very harsh language and implicated the MPP because they sponsored this agreement. What does paragraph 6.4 of the report say? It says as follows, Eshen. The committee noted with concern, and this was one of the objections the minority, led by my good self, raised. Listen, this is how it reads. The committee noted with concern the unfettered access the agreement grants to the aircraft, vehicles, and vessels of the U.S. Department of Defense to enter, exit, and freely move within the territory, airspace, and territorial waters of Ghana. This may appear to undermine the sovereignty and security of Ghana. Because of the turn of events, the chairman of the committee, after my amendment, found it compelling to also amend this paragraph to now read as follows through the insertion of some members of the committee. So this is how it now reads. The report now reads, if you go for the what was adopted, it now reads, some members of the committee noted with concern that unfettered access, this may now appear to undermine the sovereignty of Ghana. Ask yourself, who are the some members? Some members, we were the ones who raised this objection. The some members is a reference to the NDC minority group on the committee. So a shame. This was what transpired.
It's 20 minutes after 9 here on the Kwara station, Radio Gold 90.5 FM. My guest here is Honorable James Agaga. We are talking about this deal between the United States of America and Ghana. Defense deal, we are told, that was ratified last week. We're going for a quick breather. When we come back, the conversation continues. The constitutionality or unconstitutionality of that agreement, which has been ratified by Parliament, is what we'll be discussing. They say it was rectified, that was in it. The others say it was ratified. Which is it? Does that document really hold valuable? Would it stand the test in any court when the document was supposed to have been ratified and the minister presented a rectified document? Stay with us. We'll be back.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Join the Go Power Tribe for relevant news, information, interviews, and great music delivered to your doorstep through your radio, TV, or mobile. This is the Go Power Tribe, Mondays to Fridays on Radio Gold 90.5 FM.
Franco Trading Enterprise, phone Papa Pio Pana. We want Pana. I'm not to be asked as a woman for phone. And will be a woman to take a with a phone. Nasa Franco, your couple, Papa, the Asobian himself. And your phone, Infinix, you, Samsung, Nokia, iPhone, a Trump phone, or Obama phone in your Franco. And you know, Franco, as also a laptop, or more tablets, some more flash screens, going and a phone accessories. Now, phone send out the go Franco, and no one on near Yama. They say, Brother, in your Franco, be a branch, no go, baby, opposite Roxy Cinema, also Aquabang anymore, also street, go, and that Tema, and Radi Water was or 21, and once you had sell. Every source cycle, other rice, and red woman and champion. Sasuna Madina, Hacho, go for India, or Casua, or Money Casua Polyclinic in the Uber to me, online shopping, or www.francotrading.com, and answer francophones.com, and our friend 0302 225651 and a 0546 133 188. Franco Trading Enterprise. Still, phone Papa Pierre, go.
What is the state of your health? Do you have a case of male or female infertility? Have you been told you have a low sperm count? Do you have a prostate problem? Are you a lady suffering from abnormal menstrual problems? Never worry again. Zoe Fertility and Alternative Medical Center has all the answers to your health needs. At Zoe, we treat all kinds of health problems.
2015 agreement. Is that a soft copy?
So far, no.
Because I'm looking for a copy to address myself.
And they make a photo copy.
2015 one now.
I can help you.
Okay.
Let me see.
Zoe Fertility and Alternative Medical Center at our Denton New site behind Car International School, opposite Mechanical Law, on the Adenta Ebri Road.
It's captured here, but minus the annexures.
Okay.
The annexures are not relevant.
Okay, yeah.
They are the ones that make it bulky.
Yeah.
But the substance is here. So this is it.
Zoe's fertility and
Goes
alternative
on
medicine
up to the
center,
signature.
excellent
Yeah, that's
With the exchange of diplomatic notes is also attached.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
So you can have this.
Pleasant
I'll
evening
scan this one as
with
well.
a little help from
At the back,
MTN.
at the back of it is you have the agreement.
Yeah.
The back is the Annex A,
Annex A.
which was not even part of the agreement. All those things we have to raise objections so before they produced.
Yeah, have lots of friends on social media, but sometimes you
What
just
did I read online that the minister said that the copy was with the US people, not with us.
Don't mind him.
And now, the moment of reckoning. Mother-in-law tastes the food.
I've spoken to generals, and the generals are not happy with the way he
That
conducts
is the
his
sound
business.
of a happy mother-in-law. She takes a picture of Ya's magnificent Ebunubu.
You see, what has brought about all these
Her
things?
talented daughter-in-law. How to use
Decision.
your data
Yeah.
is up to you. With the
Legitimate decision.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
amazing
Yes.
what you can do
There's
on
no all the
MTN.
security
MTN.
agreements are not put out in the public domain.
True.
But they did that with Gitmo
Yes.
So the ghost has come back now.
Yeah.
Don't call me. Willnet Real Estate Company Limited. Yeah, yeah, we'll be able and Sasano. Yeah, to say for open Sasiato and
Because he leaked, they are talking about a leakage of documents. He leaked these documents to Kweku Babu and Co. Joy FM and the like.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, when he appeared before the committee, not even the committee had this. So I demanded that he should produce them, the 98 agreement, this agreement. He was feed dragging. Then I said, if he doesn't produce them, the committee will not proceed because we'll have to scrutinize these documents.
Yeah.
So, but before he could even lay these agreements before the committee, they were already.
Once again.
Fraying was 0202 309 996 and 0243 740 485. Some so by a swear they are your Shama runabout. You have been Bank of Africa, Iowa Central Building.
My guy, can I join you? Yeah, but I just go buy fuel. The fuel station, the curve, right? Nah, yeah, we go oil man. Oh yeah? But why everybody they go oil? Massa, since 19 go ho, not be today. Oil fuel, the last one. The fuel quality be superior. It cleans the engine and makes it perform far better. And I hear the price is cool cry. Oil fuel price. Always fill up with oil. Right fuel, right measure to take you further and further.
And that's why I choose Goil. I'm a Zuma Nelson, 3 times world boxing champion, and a petrol.
Goil, good energy. Yeah, yeah, Kim. Truly Ghanaian.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Join the Go Power Drive for relevant news, information, interviews, and great music delivered to your doorstep through your radio, TV, or mobile. This is the Go Power Drive, Mondays to Fridays on Radio Gold 90.5.
It's 28 minutes after 9. You are welcome to the show if you just joined us. My name is Samuel Eshen. It's good to have shared your company from 5:50 a.m. until now. We have journeyed along till date, and we have some 30 more minutes before we check out of here. Lots and lots and lots of text messages. There are 5 text messages which are on the same line that I'll ask you, Honorable, before we move to the constitutionality of the document that you ratify or its unconstitutionality. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They are all on the same line. And they want me to ask you why the 2015 document you signed was signed by your Foreign Affairs Minister and not your Defense Minister.
Yes. Eshen, you know, the Foreign Affairs Minister is the one responsible for the conduct of our external relations with other countries.
Okay.
And so sometimes the implementing agencies and ministries of state can agree on an agreement, enter into negotiations. But when it comes to the execution, the foreign minister who represents Ghana at the international level would be the one to sign for and on behalf of that ministry.
So it's conventional.
It's conventional. So that was what the Minister for Foreign Affairs did. There's nothing wrong with that. It was very clear in everybody's mind that when she signed that particular document, she signed for the Ministry of Defense as the implementing ministry. There are several treaties. I can give you an example. Ghana is signatory to the Arms Trade Treaty. I filed a question in Parliament, directed that question to the Minister for Foreign Affairs to come and answer, right? But if you look at the tenure of the Arms Trade Treaty, clearly the implementing agency ministry is the Ministry of Interior because it deals with small arms proliferation related issues. So the Minister for Foreign Affairs simply came to Parliament and told the plenary that yes, even though the foreign ministry ratified the treaty, she cannot answer questions on when the treaty would be implemented because the implementing ministry is the Ministry for the Interior. So the Speaker advised that if I was minded, I should redirect the question at the Ministry of the Interior. So the execution by Honorable Anatete was very conventional. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Let's move on to the substantive matter, which has to do with the document which has been ratified by Parliament. How constitutional or unconstitutional is that document? When I have heard many lawyers raise concerns about the document which was brought before you as parliamentarians, seeking to rectify, not ratify.
Yes. Eshen, let me start with Article 75 of the Constitution. If I read Article 75, it would make the picture very clear.
Right.
It reads as follows. The President may execute or cause to be executed treaties, agreements, or conventions in the name of Ghana.
Okay.
2. A treaty, agreement, or convention executed by or under the authority of the President shall be subject to ratification by A. Act of Parliament, or B. A resolution of Parliament supported by the votes of more than 1/2 of all the members of Parliament. So, very clearly, what is envisaged under Article 75 is that the execution of treaties, international agreements, and conventions is the preserve of the executive, the president, or his agent. That is an area reserved for the executive. However, when the executive has performed its function of executing the treaty or agreement, the second level of ratification can be triggered, which is parliamentary ratification. The reason is that in international law, Ghana is a dualist state. And when we say Ghana is a dualist state, what it means is that when we sign on to international treaties or agreements, they don't have the effect of law in our country until Parliament has ratified same. So the approach is two, and the levels of ratification are twofold. One is at the executive level, the second level is at the parliamentary level. So our argument has been that if the executive goes to bring a draft agreement, and a draft agreement is what it is. It is a draft agreement. It is not an agreement. What is an agreement? An agreement is a legal instrument or a document duly signed or sealed between the two contracting parties. Duly signed or sealed between the two contracting parties. That is how you can talk about an agreement. All right? Now, our Constitution is saying in Article 75 that when the execution has been so effected, then for that agreement to have the force of law or bind the people of Ghana, you must bring it up for parliamentary scrutiny and passage, which is the second leg of ratification. In this instant case, the executive did not execute the agreement. Eshen, look at it. This is the form in which the agreement came before Parliament. The United States did not execute the draft agreement. The government of Ghana did not execute the draft agreement.
And the standing orders of Parliament require that every document that comes for ratification ought to be signed.
Of course, it is even a constitutional imperative. So we're talking about the supreme law making that profound statement.
Why did the Speaker then overlook this to allow for even the debate to start?
And for it to be late, that is why the minority leader in his submissions prior to our walkout drew the attention of the House to the unconstitutional nature of what was brought before us. It is not even an agreement, it is a draft agreement. How do you put before Parliament a draft agreement? And when we confronted the minister, he first and foremost conceded that yes, the agreement had not been executed and that they had brought it to Parliament for Parliament to do rectifications as in corrections, before they can now execute it. How do you put that?
Is that a norm?
That is not the norm. How can you put the cart before the donkey and expect to make progress? You can't do that. That is why all along, starting from the committee level and even at the plenary, the minority has been very consistent that the agreement that was brought before us was unconstitutional.
So if I get you right, from what you say the minister says, then at the committee level, when you had gone through the documents and whatever objections have been raised, that would have been the point where the rectification would have been done for it to go back to the executive, for the document to be brought back now executed for ratification.
Exactly. Exactly. Precisely. But is that what happened, Eshen? No. That is why we're saying that the people of Ghana have been shortchanged. And that our laws, our constitution was not respected. So you now understand.
Maybe I don't have firm understanding of what is this we are talking about. Maybe me.
Patient, your understanding is very clear in this matter.
I don't understand. But what is in it for us as a nation to come?
So why the indecent haste? Why the indecent haste? That is the fundamental question we have been asking.
Yes, what is in it for us as a people to compel the government to want to pass this?
Well, government should be answering those questions. We have looked at the agreement and think that the agreement doesn't serve the best interest of Ghana. Maybe it serves the best interest of the United States. That's why the ambassador is pushing for it. That is why he thinks that by offering us 20 million, that is our worth and that we should applaud him.
Let me ask this one. At the committee level, were you told the number of facilities that were going to be cited by the United States? I don't want to refer to them as bigs. The number of facilities that the U.S. was going to cite in Ghana and where those facilities are. I know the excuse that is going to be given is that these are security facilities and so the allocation cannot be made known together. But we have been told that there was going to be one at the airport.
Absolutely.
We know.
In fact, the runway, the very runway, can be converted to military use per the agreement. And that is one of the facilities designated for use.
Did you find out as members of parliament, on behalf of your constituents, where these facilities are going to be?
We did. There's an Annex A to the agreement, which initially was hidden from us. But we said, no, we're not going to accept that. So, with great reluctance, the Annex A was produced. And when we looked at it, it was unbelievable. Our airport, the only international airport we have, the runway, right? If this agreement comes into force, can be converted for military use by the United States Armed Forces. That is what it is. And other facilities. And when we say they are about to establish a military base, some people say we are exaggerating. How are we exaggerating? When they are going to be given access to our airport, our runway, facilities within the Air Force base are going to be given to them for their exclusive use and control, and that not even our military personnel can enter them for inspection. Whatever they bring into our country, we cannot inspect. My goodness, if that is not a military base, Eshen, I don't know what a military base is. But think about the human rights violations that come with it. Look at the example of Philippines. As we speak, there are demonstrations ongoing on a weekly basis in the Philippines. The fundamental human rights of Filipinos are violated by American forces, and yet they cannot come to justice. They can't be brought to justice. That is where the issue of sovereignty comes to the fore. Is that what we want to do here in Ghana? So our courts are rendered useless? Our laws cannot apply? I mean, come on. The first thing, when you are about taking the oath of office, whether as president, minister, deputy minister, etc., you are called upon to uphold the laws of our land. So if you go and enter into an agreement which would allow for our laws not to apply, for heaven's sake, your actions are even in violation of your oath of office. That is the point, and that is the reality.
Can this in any way lead to the impeachment of the president if you say it's a violation of the Constitution of Ghana?
Well, I've raised the issues. And so, as we move along, decisions will be taken. But as a first step, we are going to test the constitutionality or otherwise of the laying of the draft agreement, the unexecuted agreement. That will be tested in due course.
Is that to suggest the minority will be headed in the direction of the courts?
Yes.
How soon is that?
I mean, we can't raise those objections and let it pass. I mean, we will. Yeah, so as a minority group, we will. We would instruct our lawyers to look at the provisions carefully and proceed therefore.
We have had groups, NUPS for instance, have said they'll be hitting the streets. There are other groups as well that have all threatened to, hit the streets. I think on Wednesday, God willing, where a huge demonstration will happen in Ghana, for which I've seen many advertisements going around. Would we see you as members of parliament joining?
It would be hypocritical on our part not to join such a demonstration. Because the views we expressed were done for ourselves and for the good people of Ghana. Right? And so if the good people of Ghana decide to hit the streets to protest, we have already started the protest. We would solidarize with the good people of Ghana.
Let me read a few comments and then we will check out here. You should see the comments that are coming through. So thank you for bringing the Honorable James Agaga to the studio. Some of us were confused by the statement that was coming from the majority. That's coming from Lucy. This one says, good morning, really good. Tell ECG officials that we, the people of Awoshi, A. Lang Street says that, let me get the, okay, it says that, okay, they should give us lights. Something from Saturday up to date, we've not had lights. We can't quit, we can't iron, we can't do anything. That's Enoch sending that message through. Antimity says, America, take Nana and leave Ghana alone. This one says, so can someone take this agreement to Supreme Court to quash it? That's a question you asked. AU Farouk says, good morning. Last Friday was Ghana's day of shame and disgrace. Our beloved country, Ghana's sovereignty, has been sold to the US for just $20 million. Posterity will judge this incompetent government. This one says, Honorable James Agaga, I love your submissions. You should be coming a lot more on Alhaji and Alhaji to educate us. We need such young men like you. Good morning, Eshan. Please, Ghanaians will be happy if you can interview Mr. Sante of the Peace Council. Let me ask this before we end the show. Have you been taken by surprise the attitude of civil society organizations in this country with respect to this matter?
Eshan, it's disturbing indeed that all these things are happening, and yet it appears we don't have civil society in Ghana anymore. In fact, I have heard the argument made by certain individuals opinion leaders that these days they now prefer to watch Animal Kingdom, and that is why they are not contributing to the national conversation on such critical issues. I mean, it's regrettable. It is regrettable. But I know the good people of Ghana are watching, they are wide awake, and will definitely vindicate us.
But what would you have
in the course of time? I mean, Ashen, these are very critical issues. Matters, things that can undermine our sovereignty, and they are keeping quiet. Goodness. Goodness. But in times past, we saw how vociferous they were over issues which didn't even come close to this. In any sense, they were very vociferous. All of a sudden, the media talks rubbish, so they can only watch Animal Kingdom. Good people of this country are watching and listening.
It brings us to 15 minutes more to the top of the hour 10. We would activate the phone lines in a bit for listeners to also join us. Maybe one or two questions may come from our listeners, but this one says, we need to know that the people of La cannot be included in this suicidal mission. Please, some of us, that's the citizens of La, want to know the so-called affected areas as stated in the U.S. Army Base Agreement. I state categorically that the elements of the agreement allowing into the so-called affected areas any materials, including nuclear, poisonous, biological, radioactive nerve agents, bombs, etc., without inspection by Ghanaian officials, as well as a free movement in and out of these affected areas by the military, armed civilian contractors, and others, possibly including terrorists, etc., without proper identification are unacceptable. Thus, will oppose any such agreement if any of the so-called affected areas is in La. Let me read one or two more text messages. Okay, all right. I understand Mr. Bernard Mona is in the courts now. Himself and the IGP's case, I think it has to do with his arrest, right? Yes, and so they are at the Human Rights Court, and the hearing is just about commencing. Our colleagues will follow up at the court to bring us latest updates when it comes to this matter. But question for you. Did the Defense Minister, Dominic Itu, say on Newsfile that the agreement is a worse due, yet they approve it? What do you make of the statement? Did he say that?
Yes. What he actually said was that the agreement that was brought to them was even worse than what it is now, and that they had done some work on it. So in effect, yes, the agreement is terrible, it's worse, but it was even worse. Right? Yeah, that is the admission.
Let me activate the phone lines and pick a few comments, and then we will check out of here. Hello, good morning. Yes, sir, Chief, your name?
Shen.
Yes, sir, Eben. Eben, go ahead.
Ghana. So is it a so-called competent men and women? You know, Samuel, one thing I normally say, it is better you can't read at all than to read and not able to understand what you read. Then Baumia said they read, and we the NDC we don't read. And look, those who read, look at what the kind of nasty agreement they signed for us. And the so-called Catholic bishops are quiet. The Christian Council, the Peace Council. Where are those who said Nyansafue? So is this so-called the Nyansafue really now? Oh, Ghana, my country Ghana, I'm included Ghana.
Amen. Thank you very much for joining me. The way you are shouting, you've eaten some cake already. Hello, good morning. Yes, sir, Chief. Your name, sir? I'm going to announce where. That's a man uncle.
America for such a phone, Omuba. Not Omudi, when you say every year, Omudi Omuship, Ebeba. The ship now, A2 oil, no, say a quap, Ghana Oil Center, you want to make his own manner. Oh, Sabi, young penny for, no, you go to go no. Omudu and Colorado. You want to say, after no move 18 years. You want after no 15 years. No more time. Again, the best. And in America for about the Ghana. I'm going to make you about here. Yes, me carry. Or the car bar, who's me carry? Or the two bar, who's me carry? At them.
William Dacipiano Pesoba, hello, good morning. Yes, sir, Chief. Good morning, go.
But me, here, Honorable Agalga. Now, I'll cut your MP group D. Echo the other committee meetings. If you almost echo the other meetings, no. But I am no better.
But or say MPs, whether on the majority or minority side, it be on different committees, so or more with me so call other committees, so some things.
But they can't say MPs, no, elders to send one more piano. And this is a bit much natural key, not after they are sorted there. Me, my team, and you say, young for being a sort here.
Openi mamenjeje one kase enko for na asrepi or say omo objections omo raise and the chairman did not allow for those objections into whether mo ye 30 kwampa or object here mo ye 40 kwa nya adwuma what you say
he say me ma gin say so one for obi say we no the fear but me make say start here me ma gin say ye yan for the fear me ma gin me ka say no kan no they are to party and almost proper.
Medium that's if you are a base of Bahama. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Chief, your radio is very terrible and your line is terrible as well. Hello, good morning. Yes, your name, sir. Come again. Go ahead.
Then I come next. Yeah, is this Kwame Nkrumah Ghana? Is this Kwame Nkrumah Ghana that they left for us? These people came in, their grandfathers destroyed Ghana. We managed, then Ghana has become stable. Now their grandchildren are selling Ghana. Now these people that are coming, they are going to use our friends free. They are going to use our friends, and then the presidents that are coming to bring their cup.
All right, Chief. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me this morning. Hello, good morning. Yes, please. Good morning. Your name? Nanama. Amasaman.
Yes, Sonitra, a suburb of Amasaman.
Okay.
We are dying here. The battery I'm using is running.
How many days have you been off? Wow. Sorry about that, Ama. All right. Ama, I'm sure the ECG folks are listening. They will do something about it. Oh. Sorry. All right. Ama, thank you. We'll do something. My final caller. Good morning. Yes, Chief, your name. Come again. Your name. Prophet 1, turn down your radio set. Yo.
And then you know, a sofa before, a sofa president, and a sofa ministers, baby, Cronone, and throwing your manama de Pipi. In the Mumagana for money on the Linda, yes, you are not for another. Now we are over mine, and they won't see you. They are for Yami, and then you're quiet, not that. The Ghana Post, you crowd and look at
Minium Dasi Piano Peso Ba Ahomaniso, and that brings us to 5 more minutes to the top of the hour, 10, and it's checkout time for us. And that to hand over to the news team to take over with news at 10, after which Ochiami Ayin Super Jumba takes over. Honorable, your final words to my listeners before you take leave of us.
Well, my concluding remarks is that, Ghana is a sovereign state. Ghana is a respected country and should not, under any circumstance, sell its sovereignty to any foreign power under any circumstance for a measure of pottage. 20 million is not the worth of Ghanaians. In any case, we are capable of managing our own affairs. We were the first country to gain our independence in 1957 in the sub-Saharan African continent. We engaged in a lot of emancipation activities, especially for the black race. We cannot now be the country to compromise our sovereignty in this manner. A lot of countries within Africa and outside Africa look up to Ghana for inspiration. Besides, this deal, I have demonstrated, does not serve the best interest of Ghana at all. It's not too late. After all, remember, the executive didn't even execute the agreement. Let them decline to execute SAFE and allow the matter to rest at that point. Thank you, Eshen, for granting me audience.
Yes, thank you as well.
And good morning to our listeners.
Yes, thank you very much for joining us this morning. You're very here early, and I must say I love that bit about you. The Honorable James Agaga is a member of Parliament for Busa North, joining us on the show. He's a ranking member on the Interior and Defense Select Committee in Parliament, and he joined us to discuss the matter of the ratification of the US-Ghana defense deal. That brings us to 4 minutes to the top of the hour. 10, I'm not gone yet. Stay with me.
No, Benny. No.
And it's all up on,
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Oh,